All right, I wanted to do this video real quick, talk a little bit about Lake Texoma striper fishing. I had an opportunity to go striper fishing a couple weeks ago around Christmas. It was kind of a cold morning in the 40s, a little bit of drizzle, cloudy. And this is basically what you see here is the setup that I used for the whole day and had a lot of success kind of in those conditions. I think the water temperature was mid 40s, something like that, maybe 43, 46, something like that. And this was the setup that I used all day. So I used this Buckeye spinning blade setup here. I think this is, at least when I found, this is the only option they have, is a 1/2 ounce jig head with the blade on it. And then I paired that with the Rage Swimmer. This one is, what do they call this? Pearl Flash. And so it's white for on the bottom, or you know, on one side, and it's kind of got a little bit of flake on the top. And so you can kind of see it in the pack here, right? It all looks kind of white until you look sideways and realize it's got some flake in there. And so that's what I used pretty much all day. The guys that I was with, they were running all sorts of stuff. They were trying all sorts of different variations. Didn't have nearly as much success as I did. And really heavily it was the blade. And then I also had the Strike King Squadron swim bait jig head that I used as well in 1/2 ounce. I did briefly, and I just don't have them out and available, switch up to like a 3/4 ounce or even a 1 ounce jig head. And a lot of that was when we went out for the day, first thing in the morning, we thought we were going to catch these striper shallow. The spots these guys had marking their waypoints for shallow, and we didn't find them shallow. And when we did find them on the fish finder, which, you know, for Texoma, there's a lot of deep water. You get a pretty good scan. That's basically what we did is went out, we followed the birds that were diving down into the water and then driving around just looking for bait fish. And then we would throw our rigs out there and had really good success. But anyways, back to what I was saying, the reason that I would maybe step this up, this is good for shallow water, maybe this 1/2 ounce. I'd maybe step to 3/4 or probably really a 1 ounce jig just to get the bait down a little bit further. This bait is kind of a little bit buoyant. And so it really just helps to have that heavier jig head on there if you're having to fish deep for the fish. I think we ended up finding most of them around, I don't know, it was 20, 30 feet, something like that on Texoma. And, you know, I hesitate to give you exact spots because striper move around a lot, but essentially we were, you know, basically fishing along rocky shoreline around bridges. We went out deep. I would say probably some of that was creek channels. I didn't really look at the map very closely. But again, like I said, when you see birds swooping down into the water, that's a pretty good indication that there's fish there. And so following the birds a little bit helps you as well. So again, this is what I fished all day. On the spin blade, I lost a giant fish. It broke the 15-pound fluorocarbon line that I was using. But and then that was my last blade of the day, so I switched over to the Squadron and the other jig head that I mentioned. But some combination of this seemed to work really well. Even on the cloudy, white seems to be a good color for catching striper. And again, the thing to remember about them is they, unlike bass in the winter, they're lethargic. Striper are cold water fish, so they're actually going to be up, moving, active. And from what I understand, they're pretty active feeders, so they'll be moving around throughout the day. So my recommendation would be use a setup like this, 15-pound fluorocarbon, maybe a little bit heavier if you're going for some bigger ones. Again, I would step up. 1/2 ounce works, I think, for shallower. If you're really looking at deeper water, really maybe step up to like a 1 ounce setup. But otherwise, like I said, had a lot of good success. I think just using this, that's all I used all day, was some combination of these setups. And I caught 4 or 5 fish. I think everybody else they were using similar swim baits from different brand, but this was really the killer setup for that day. So this would be what I would recommend for Texoma. The last thing I would tell people to remember is if you're a Texas fisherman and some of the waters are in Oklahoma, you need to either have an Oklahoma fishing license, or you can spend, I think it's $12, and get the Texoma license. just specific for Texoma. And then that way you're covered no matter what waters you're in. So until next time.